Christie Sides of the Indiana Fever is here to talk about a team that is on the rise. We're going to get into the nerdy details. Locked On Women's Basketball starts now.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Very happy Tuesday to you, and welcome to Locked On Women's Basketball. I'm your host, Howard Megdal. I want to thank you for making us your first listen every day. You guys keep showing up for us. Over 200,000 of you listening in July alone, the way we show up for you 6 days a week, talking about the past, present, and future of women's basketball. It is, of course, not just me, the entire team over at thenexthoops.com. We have over 100 reported pieces every month. We have a dedicated reporter on every WNBA team. Some markets, we have two, and Talia Goodman and Tony East covering the Indiana Fever, making sure we get the Fever story from every angle. You want to support this work? $9 a month, $72 a year. All comes to your email, thenexthoops.com. It is the women's basketball newsroom that we've all been waiting for, and now it's here. And goodness knows we've had a lot of coverage about Christie Sides, Indiana Fever, and a team that is fascinating. Obviously, gets a lot of publicity and coverage from bringing Caitlin Clark to town, but there is, of course, so much to this story. And I just want to take at the top, Christy, to talk about the history of this year. You know, we talked about this during the offseason. You've obviously been on the program before about knowing that you didn't experience something no one's really ever gotten to experience before. And then you had 11 games in 20 days, which was a thing that basically no one had gotten to experience before too, but not in a good way. So now I'm wondering.
In a good way, yeah.
Not in a good way. So I'm glad to hear your voices back. And I want to know that now that you had a chance to reflect during this Olympic break, what have been sort of the things that float back to you as you think through this incredible process that you guys have been going through?
Yeah, this the break came at a perfect time for our players, for our staff. Like you hit on a minute ago, just the schedule to start the season with such a young team. I mean, the word resilient just comes to my mind, into my head when I get to thinking about during that time and how hard it was on our players, to go into some of those environments. We're playing in front of packed houses, right? And we've got all the expectations, high expectations on a second year of a rebuild team. And, it wasn't going our way early, and we were learning each other. And it was, these guys, I'm so proud of how they just kept showing up. They showed up. We just, infused positivity and just keep getting better. And that's what we did during that month of May. And then it really turned around for us in June. We had time together. We had 7 days in training camp before we played our first, preseason game against Dallas. And so, it's just been the time together you've seen us grow so much in that because we've had the time together, and those expectations early, just, for outsiders. And when you've not been a part of this, like, it takes time. And so the way our players responded to that, we weren't meeting the expectations of a lot of folks. Like, we knew what our goal was. We knew the process, and we just had to keep sticking to that.
I know the playoffs have been the goal, and I understand that. To me, and to just kind of unpack that a little bit. Okay, you start 2-9, like I said, in a 20-day span, 11 games in 20 days, at a moment in which typically the defending champions are the types of teams that get everybody's best shot. Mm-hmm. That's not what this was. This is a team that was 5-31 2 years ago. This is a team that is still figuring out who they were. And again, I just as a point that I think is necessary for our folks at home listening to understand, Caitlin Clark is brand new to the league during that period of time. Aliyah Boston is rounding into form. Kelsey Mitchell missed most of training camp, like you said.
All of training camp hours.
All of training camp with an ankle injury that she is working through. Katie Lou Samuelson coming back from a pregnancy and finding game speed again. You just go up and down the list and you see that the biggest contributors expected coming in all were facing some challenges to navigate. But I also want to highlight the 15 games since. And I talked to Lyndon on this program just recently about this. But to me, those numbers are real instructive as well. And so I want that to kind of inform our discussion as we think about it. We'll break in segment 2 down into individual players and then the bigger picture in segment 3. But over the last 15 games ahead of break, you guys were 9-6. By net rating, you were 6th in the lead. The teams ahead of you: Minnesota, Connecticut, Vegas, Seattle, New York. The teams that everyone's talking about as the championship contenders in what is frankly a wide open year. The defense up exponentially better, the offensive efficiency at another level. Obviously, at an individual level, we're seeing numbers from Aliyah, from Caitlin, from Kelsey Mitchell, especially, who's as efficient as she's ever been in her career. But I wonder whether you view that 15-game span as a true indicator of what you can do, or is that something more akin to a floor you can build from?
Yeah. That's a good question. The last 15 games have definitely been kind of a better indication of who we are and where we are in this moment. The teams that are ahead of us are the teams that we're striving to be. We're trying to be like those teams. It's been a long time. You said it 2 years ago before I took the job. They had 5 wins.
That's right.
Last year we come in and we had I thought was a successful season with our 13 wins and we built a great foundation and culture. But these last 15 games where we're sitting offensively, the ratings in the different categories where we are, we're putting up points. We're just able to execute with the players that we have on the floor, with our shooting ability, with AB and how she's playing, Alyssa Smith, Kelsey Mitchell, the attention that Caitlin Clark, what she draws and how she's been such a great playmaker with the players around her. I mean, we're getting wide open shots. Kelsey Mitchell's getting more wide open shots than she's gotten in her career.
Ever.
Yeah. And so, as long as, we've really focused on this in this break as it relates to offense, just making sure we're doing everything we can to do better with making those wide open looks that we're getting, because we're getting some great looks from 3. We've got, around the basket, we've not finished some that we've got to make sure that we finish. Our free throw shooting had to improve. Those are the things we worked on that side of the ball. Talking defense, that's where my mind, that's where I feel like, I think we're in 11 right now. And I just feel like for us to make this push here at the end, we've got to get to 8, 9 in that rating, in that category, just because we've got to do a better job of getting stops. People are just, we just give up too many transition buckets, and that sometimes has to do with our offense. I mean, we're turning the ball over at a high clip. That we need to work on that, but we've got to make sure we're not letting people put up 87 points on us. You don't get the opportunity to win games and giving up 87 points is just something that we have to get better at. That's our transition defense. And that's our win your individual battle defense. Just the pride of just making sure that I'm going to do everything I can to keep my player in front of me. And then the help side defense is the second part of that we've, really worked on during this break that we didn't have the opportunity in the first half of the season to do.
Listen, like an experienced guest, you have led me into the specific areas I wanted to get to, specifically about the turnovers, which even during that 15-game span, Indiana's 12th in the lead in turnover percentage. And again, that is striking, like you said, not just because of the pressure that puts on defense. Live ball turnovers are obviously the most challenging for any defensive unit, let alone one that is still looking to communicate together. But it is during a time where, during that span, that you guys were second in the lead in true shooting percentage, behind only the Las Vegas Aces, who were dominant over that period of time as well. So that is the level that you're playing at. It's very interesting to hear you talk about 8, 9. Now you're 9th over that span in defensive rating overall. So if you can get there 8th, 9th in the lead, that's going to require probably mid-range, like 5th or 6th during this final span in order to balance it out. So the how you guys get there and some of the individual ways we do it, we're going to get back to in segment 2 here with Christie Sides, head coach of the Indiana Fever. I'm Howard Megdal. You are listening to Locked On Women's Basketball. Locked On Women's Basketball is brought to you by eBay. And so eBay Motors specifically, passion, drive, and patience, they're all available and they're all part of the formula, not just for winning championships, but also for keeping your car alive. eBay Motors makes it really easy to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Take it from me because I don't know anything about cars, but eBay Motors helps even somebody like me. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. I will be honest with you, I don't even know what some of those are. Doesn't matter. I know what car I drive, and eBay has this guaranteed fit. It's this little green check mark, and your guaranteed fit or your money back. That's how eBay Motors helps even people like me. Hopeless cases? No, not with eBay Motors. So with all the parts you need at all the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply, eBay guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers. Yeah, truly, I know where the game is. I don't know how I'm getting there. I need the car to get me there. That's it. Once I get there, then we get to the fun stuff, right? Where we're talking about the Indiana Fever, Christie Sides back here with us. And when we think about how the Fever make those types of jumps we were talking about in segment 1, the turnover thing is so interesting to me, right? Because Caitlin Clark had in college, and you go back, high turnover rates, but lower turnover percentages, which is to say that giving her the chance to play at the speed she wants to play at, giving her the opportunity to make those plays meant the assist percentages were at levels we have frankly never seen at the collegiate level. How do you strike that balance with a ball dominant guard who's doing so many incredible things and find out how you do that? Or is that literally just reps? And just as she's doing it, you expect those mistakes to become fewer and fewer.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's the reps with her new teammates. It's the reps with understanding where Aliyah is going to roll to, or where Liz is going to pop to, or where the defense, and then also the scheming part of it, where the defense is coming from, and just making those reads. I mean, she's making these reads now against the best players in the world, right? I mean, these are some great athletes who are putting pressure on her that she's never felt before. She's starting to figure that out. That's reps. So I think it to me, that's where we're going to see the improvement. I talked about her being a playmaker and juggling that and trying to make sure like we're getting she's needs to take a certain amount of shots for us to be successful. But her playmaking skills are just that to me is what's so impressive, and it's just been so fun to be out on the court with Caitlin Clark and the things that she sees, her court vision and the passes that she makes. I mean, sometimes you just have to pause and I just turn around. I'm just like, wow, like, just that a pass that she'll make, and we'll go over and look at it during the practice, like with our video guy, just because we're like, wow, was that as special as we thought it was. And it is. So I think, like you said, reps has a huge part of that.
The other part of what that brings you guys, Aliyah is as efficient as we've seen so far in her career. Obviously, a young career here in year 2. And you talked about Kelsey being as open as she is. Is it a question of finding other players who are making shots at a similar rate? I look at someone like Katie Lou Samuelson, who has been a shot maker throughout her career, obviously still finding her footing here. Is it getting more opportunities for her? Melissa Smith has been a consistent offensive performer for you. Is it potentially figuring out, all right, well, we're going to get the ball to Liz more? How do you kind of go about elevating that even further? Or do you think there's room to grow even for what Kelsey and Aliyah can do?
Yeah. As a coach, sometimes we just make it more difficult than it has to be. We overthink it.
Mhm.
That's what we do. A lot of times when we start having these conversations as a staff, it's like, okay, what can we do different? What do we need to do? And we're constantly thinking offense, right? But that is where we've seen significant improvement. That's where, we're pretty steady there. I 100% agree. Katie Lou's finding her footing, and Katie Lou's getting some of those same wide open shots that Kelsey's getting. You've got those two on each wing or corner with Caitlin up top with AB and Liz in a roll rise situation. I mean, as a coach, like you've got options, and that those are great options, with those five on the floor.
Not to mention the flip side that as a defense, what is your choice? You don't have
Right.
a choice you can make. It
Yeah,
just
we always
forces
say
you into bad decisions.
pick your poison. Which one is
Right.
it going to be? And so just the consistency from, like you said, Katie Lou and Melissa Smith, that's the ball's going to find them. It always does
Mhm.
because, of Caitlin and Aliyah and Kelsey. The ball's going to find those guys. It's going to find, Lexi Hull's going to come in and also be a threat for us, Christy Wallace. But we just have to, honestly, like we've just got to get better at what we're already doing pretty decent. Like that is like we keep trying to add new and hey, what about this? And what about let's add that? Let's just keep getting better at what we already see is working for us.
I saw a split in Caitlin's numbers already that I thought was really interesting, and I wonder, and maybe there's not a definitive answer to this, but I'm wondering what you're seeing back in practice. So Caitlin, when she had to play on 0 days rest, this is thanks to sportsreference.com, it, field goal percentage is 16.7% in 2 games. Rightly so, right? Back
Yeah.
to backs. Can't even listen, covering back to backs hard, and I'm not even running up and down the court. 39.5% field goal percentage if she's on 1 day of rest. She's on 2 days of rest, 44%. If she's on 3+ days of rest, 47.3%. And critically, her 3 point percentage is 43.9% on that time as well. I just wonder in what ways, and maybe you can't see it, maybe you don't see it till the games are back there, but how her legs look fresher after having this break to be able to recharge. How much of a difference you think it has made already?
Huge. I mean, this girl has not stopped playing, since she started her college season
Yeah.
last year, right? So, you know, the break for Caitlin, you talk about 1 day of rest, 2 days of rest, 3 days of rest. Like we gave them some great opportunities to get enough rest. Now she's also a worker. And so like I was, always having to check in, make sure she was getting the rest that she needed. That's just
Sure.
her mentality, which that's why she is who she is, right?
That's
But
greatness. Yeah.
um she needed to get just a break, a mental break, a physical break. And, she's in here every morning, shooting with Jesse Miller, one of my assistant coaches. When she walks in, she'll walk in, she's like, yeah, I've shot the hell out of it. Like that is, you know, but that's what she's supposed to be doing. So her frustration was also during that time with, her shot wasn't falling, but she just kept, like she just knew, take the next one, take the next one. That's what we just kept talking about. So, a month of rest for Caitlin Clark, is exactly what she needed. And I think you're going to see a difference in when we come out on Friday. And you're not going to be able to see that until we start playing
Mhm.
games to get those kind of numbers.
What about for you? This was an unprecedented level of pressure. This is the type of microscope that I would argue no WNBA coach has ever been under, given
Yeah.
the amount of attention that's going on to it. How did you decompress, and how much pressure do you feel now on the other side of it?
Yeah. Losing that Dallas game right there at the end just kind of just put a real last punch. Like
Mm.
we just had such a, for our players, for my staff, like you said, all of what you just said. I don't think that's ever been the case in the WNBA up
Yeah.
to this point. Um, the pressure has been something we've just tried to manage and deal with, and understand that we've got to keep everybody on the same page, understanding this is still a process. Like we can't let the outside noise affect us and hurt us. That's really hard, Howard. That's really hard to do with social media these days, and that's just a part of our world. And so you're reading what you think is going to be a feel good something article, and then it's just like, bam, like you just, it's just not good enough. Nothing's good enough. But that's not what we have to just block that out and take care of us. Our break couldn't have come at a better time. I was able to watch our players do an awesome job in the All-Star game in Phoenix. Those three representing us was incredible. Those are three special players, and just to have them and then win that game, and then able to get home. I live pretty close to the beach in the South, so I was able
Mhm.
just to sleep in my bed and get out in the sun and just kind of turn it off. And I did that. I tried really hard just to turn it off for a good 3 or 4 days. Again, that's really hard to do because your wheels are constantly turning.
Mhm.
But I was just really hoping that our players, for me, the reason I coach and why I do this is to develop people and develop basketball players and to win. I mean, we all want to win. Um, but I just needed those guys to take a step back. I mean, what they've gone through, unprecedented times, unprecedented expectations. It took a toll. I mean, it took a toll on all of us. And so just that break, we're rejuvenated. We've really had a great break. We've done a lot of team chemistry, team bonding, team events. A team that likes each other is going to naturally play harder for each other and
Mhm.
sacrifice for each other. And that's where you get the sustainable wins. And that's who the Indiana Fever, that's who we're trying to become. And we didn't get that opportunity early when we were all new. You said Katie Lou, you talk about a new point guard. All that stuff takes time, and it's so important. It's so important to have to have that moment in time to build something that's going to be sustainable. We didn't have that early. We've been able to have more of that during this break, and hopefully it's going to translate into some more, wins for us in the second half.
And again, I'm back with final thoughts in just a minute with Christie Sides, but again, very interesting where we are. So back final thoughts here, Christy, when we're talking about this team over the final 14 games, you guys are in position right now to make the playoffs if the season ended today. So a good position to be in to be able to achieve these goals. Again, playing like a team that is right, let's say right below, a notch below the underlying metrics that you're seeing out of the teams that are championship title contenders. Do you have a single metric, a single amount of wins you think you need to hit in order to get there? Is there a player who you have gotten some, but not as much as you ultimately think you will get from her over these final 14 games? I'm just wondering what that final, let's say, piece to fall into place needs to be in your view.
Yeah, I'm not going to give you a number, Howard. That's kind of how we've built um, this team in the and in this year two. It's just about creating good habits, right? Like creating winning habits, um, and being able to do that day in and day out. So we always just focus on the next game. So our next game is Phoenix, right? That's who we're getting ready for. Um, we've got to find a way to get a little bit better every day, but we also have to up our game as the game goes. So like we will start strong and then we will have a lull of one quarter. And those quarters have been the ones that have really hurt us. We've got to stop that. That's what great teams do. When things aren't going your way, you've got to find a way to take that next step up. Again, in that talking about that next step, we beat New York at home. Now we have Washington at home and we lose to Washington, a young team. That game after the game, same thing, beat Minnesota at Minnesota, go to Dallas, game after the game. These are all things that young teams have to go through to understand how to prepare for. You're not going to walk in and just win games in this league. I mean, every team is good in this league. So it's just about our habits and getting better every game, finding a way to really have our team prepared for the team that we're about to play. And a lot of those are going to be at home during this second half, which is a great thing for us. Looking forward to getting Timmy back. Hopefully that's a huge piece for us. Damiris
Excellent.
Dantas has been one that is just, we've had the opportunity to get her practice time with us. Katie Lou has been able to work as a 3 for us for, with significant practice time. So it's just about using this opportunity to make sure those areas that we chose to really focus on during the break to help us get the wins we need to reach our ultimate goal, which is to make the playoffs. We've done a really good job in those areas during this break.
Phoenix, Seattle at home, at Minnesota, starts off with some real measuring sticks to see whether you're ready to now just take that jump from in the playoffs to that next level up. Feel like you're going to learn a lot from that team over the next 3 games, especially?
I do. I think those
Yeah.
are 3 good matchups for us, especially 2 of those being at home, that we can come out and really see what we've put our work into during this break. If it's going to, show up for us the way we think it will in these first few games.
Cannot wait to see it. Well, you've got a practice to get to, Christie Sides, and I'm going to get this out to the people. Thank you to all of our listeners as well. Christie, thank you always for your time. Until tomorrow, I am Howard Megdal, wishing all of you guys a wonderful Tuesday.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.